Hi, welcome. Today we're going to do something a bit different. I'm going to talk you through the process I follow to create a pastel drawing using chalk pastels, and I'll be drawing the Werribee River. So most of the time you'll just hear me talking about the process and the materials to use and things like that, and it won't be a completed project. You'll just get to see the initial stages of things. And I thought you'd also like to see a few other things that I've been working on. So this won't be a proper lesson, but more just an introduction to pastels and how to get started with them. And I hope in the next week or so to do another more formal lesson for you as well. But I'll just flip the camera around and I'll show you some other things that I've been working on, or some other art related things as well. So just bear with me while I switch around. Well, the first thing I'll show you is a portrait I've been working on. And one of my older students that I tutor set me the challenge of doing a portrait. I don't normally do portraits, but she wanted to learn some skills for that. And she sent me a photo of someone. I assume they're an actress. She did mention their name, but I don't actually remember who it was. But anyway, this is the start of my portrait. If I zoom in, hopefully the camera will cooperate, you can just see the guidelines that I drew in there. So just a cross grid, which I've tried to rub out as best I can. And so still got to finish it off, but I was quite pleased with how that turned out. Because I don't do portraits regularly, I was a bit more nervous about how I'd go, but in the end I thought, oh, actually it's working all right. It might encourage me to do some more as well, because portraits are always more challenging, I find, than doing buildings and things where you're just working with a lot more straight lines and things you can measure easily. And the real challenge with portraits is to make it look just like the person. Often they look like a human, but not necessarily just like the person. So anyway, that's one thing. So that's been done with grey lead pencil. And I'll just pop her carefully down on the ground. And I've also been having some prints done. So this is the drawing. Well, this is a copy of the drawing of Pemberley. So the grounds at Pemberley. That's the name of my artwork that this is. And this is a giclée print. A giclée, I don't know how the French would quite say it. Printed on archival quality paper, so that's a full-size one. So I tried it out with the poster factory just to see what kind of work they produce. And yeah, I'm very pleased with the result. And the good thing is that if someone wants to order a copy, they get in touch with me, and then I can just order one through the Poster Factory website, and they'll actually mail it straight to the customer, or the person ordering it from me, rather than me having to double up with postage. So I don't want to flatten it in case I damage the print. But that's that one, and I've also had some other ones printed through my normal printer that I've been using for years. So I just thought it'd be interesting to do a comparison and see how things go with that. If anyone wants to order a print, get in touch with me through my website. Just email me at info@robertkingdomart.com, and I can let you know how much it will cost. And I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. Probably you're looking at somewhere around $150 Australian for a print that size, plus postage. So anyway, I've got several of those prints at the moment, and I do have some other prints as well. And if anyone sees something on my website that they'd like a print of, most things I have had professionally scanned, so you can just let me know what you'd like and I can organise that. An A3 print would if I get it done with the normal printers, that would be cost the customer $75, and A4 would be half of that. And then plus postage. The other thing I wanted to show is that, and if you follow me on Instagram, you might have seen this. So I bought a whole roll of fabric from Spotlight the other day because this room needs some curtains. Oops, excuse me, print. So the curtains that are here, because I'm only renting, these are very flimsy ones, as you can see, and they don't block out the light for me. So I'm hoping that this new fabric will do a better job. I was looking at ready-made curtains, but I just couldn't find anything that really suited the room and my furniture and so on. And yeah, the room does have a pink wall. I could probably paint it myself a different colour if I want to at some point. But anyway, I think that fabric will tie in beautifully with the room, and it's reminiscent of William Morris's designs, and he's one of my favourite designers of all time. So not quite as detailed and not as many layers as what you'd find in an original Morris, but it's still got that vibe about it. So anyway, now the next challenge is to actually turn it into some curtains, which is going to take a while. And I did get some cotton backing as well to put on it, so that's another project that I'm working on. So bit by bit, making my studio room look more, I don't know, more interesting, and trying to make it a reflection of, almost like a self-portrait in a way, just a reflection of things that I love, so that my viewers can look at the background and learn little things about me, see what my style is. And I love antiques and things. Got them in the rest of the house as well, so I wanted to carry that through into my studio space. And there's my drawing, original pen drawing of the Werribee River. So that is the Winnie the Pooh tree, the tree that reminds me of the place where Pooh Bear and his friends would hang out. That's the original. If anyone wants to buy that one, I think it is $400 Australian, including the frame. And I think it's small enough for me to mail anywhere in the world. So anyway, there's that one. So yeah, I just thought you'd be interested to hear a bit more about what I've been up to with a few other things. And I shall now get on to talking about the pastel drawing, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and stay tuned for more videos where I'll be continuing on with the pastel drawing. So I won't finish it today or in today's session. It's going to take a while, but I thought it would be worth recording so that you can get a feel for how I start the process. So anyway, enjoy the video, and I shall catch you after the intro. Set up and ready to go, and I have finally got some new blue pastels. in the mail, sent out from the UK. So I've gone with the Rembrandts again. In the previous video you would have seen that I have enjoyed using this lovely selection of Rembrandt pastels, and no, I'm not sponsored by them, but I do like the product. So I wanted to get some extra blue ones. That was holding me up from starting my new pastel drawing of the Werribee River, and you can see a photo of it just in the distance on the screen over there. So I've got those blues. I don't think I've opened the other one yet. I've just got blues from memory. I might have got something else, I'm not sure. Yeah, just different kinds of blues. And what did I get? So I got a few of the Phthalo hold it still, PHTHALO blue, so phthalo blue, which gives that real nice warm sky blue. These ones, you can get different shades of that as well. This one's a darker version of it, a darker shade. It's a bit hard to see on the camera, I'm sure, but it's just a bit more intense, more saturated or whatever. And then I've also got blue, turquoise blue here. So it's just got a bit more green in it. So I thought it'd be nice to have a few options for the blues, because the blue tends to run out. This was my little Rembrandt one. It's getting a bit short. So to do the sky, and I like to start with the sky first in my pastel drawings. So I wanted to make sure I had the blues ready to go. And so you can see how I've laid up the pastel drawing here. I'm using gritty paper. Feels like very fine sandpaper. So there's a special coating that's somehow put onto the thick paper itself. So where you see the cream bit, that is the gritty stuff, and then that's just normal smooth paper, like thick watercolor paper. So that's the kind that I like to use. I think it's made by Canson. I could be wrong, but that's my favourite, because you want a gritty, rough texture to be able to pick up the pastels well. You can get papers that don't have that grittiness to them as well, but they just have little indentations in them. And they're okay, but I find this is really nice to work with. You just got to watch your fingers if you're not using a paper stump to smudge with or to blend with. Sometimes your fingers can get a little bit raw, a bit smooth. Lose your fingerprints slightly if you're doing that a lot. And you notice I've got it on a board on the easel, and I think with pastel drawing I find it easier to do them, especially the large ones, standing up, rather than working flat on the table like I would with watercolour. That way you've got the dust falling away, it's not just sitting there and so on. But working on a larger scale, it's good to be able to step back from it occasionally and have a look from a distance. It's harder when you're sitting down focused on something that's on the table, to be able to just jump up and have a look from a distance. I find this easier as well. And for the drawing itself, I have, and I'll be honest, I've just used my data projector to project the photo that I've taken. So I do like to work wherever possible with photos that I've taken, rather than grabbing someone else's. Sometimes in my lessons I'll get something off Canva, because if they say, oh, hey, I want to do a portrait or this or that, and I'm not able to go out and take a photo myself, then I don't mind using ones that are royalty free, or where you can mention in the thing who you got the photo from. But generally I like to work from my own photo, and I like using the projector to basically to save time. So I know I can, if I needed to, I could draw that without using a projector, but it would take a lot longer to just make sure everything's in the right spot. So it's a time-saving device, and time-saving devices have been used for centuries. So definitely not the first one. I think Vermeer and Canaletto, I believe they used the early versions of the camera obscura or things like them to help them to map out their large works as well. And for me, it's not about this so much as the actual, it's more for me, the pleasure comes with shading, adding texture and color and different layers and so on. So I don't mind just using a device to help me to just quickly get the basics down. Obviously then I need to make choices about where the fine details go and the colors and all that. So anyway, but it's good for you to know that it's okay to use devices. The pressure shouldn't be there for everyone to always do it from scratch every time. If you're wanting to get more artworks done, then we want to find ways to save time. And it doesn't mean that you can't draw from scratch, it's just that you don't need to do that all the time. Okay, so I'm going to start, and I like to start with the lighter shades first. So I'm using soft pastels or chalk pastels, soft chalk pastels, whatever you want to call them. The Rembrandt ones, as I've mentioned previously, are nice and smooth. They're quite buttery. They are a bit more waxy than your average chalk pastel. And the dust is quite heavy, so it's not like a cloud that gets in the air. It actually just falls down pretty rapidly. I might move that out of the way so I don't get dust on it. Yeah, so these ones, I really like them out of all the ones I've used so far. I do like the Art Spectrum ones as well, but they are more crumbly, more chalky. They do create more dust, but they do give really good coverage, and they are quite soft as well. But these ones are nice, but you do have to pay for them. But if you look out for specials, then that's a good way to do it. Alright, so let me decide on my blue, and Mr. Phthalo Blue, the lighter one, is jumping out at me. So I'm just going to start to pop a bit on, see how it goes. Yep, I like that. Just going around near the edge of the tree. So I like to start light and go dark as I move along. Now I was taught it when I was at uni that when you're painting, like with oil paints, you start with the dark and finish with the lighter tones. I'm not sure if that's a hard and fast rule all the time, and oil painting is something that I'd like to get back into it, but I just don't feel that I ever quite grasped it. My lecturer suggested that I try watercolour, and it was pretty basic what I could do when I was actually at uni, but once I left uni I started to dabble more in watercolour and found that it actually suited my style really well, because I think primarily I'm a drawer. I love, hard word to say, I love drawing, and the weird thing is when I was at uni, my painting lecturer, she said, and she also lectured me in drawing. When I was doing drawing, she'd say, "Oh, you have a very painterly style when you're drawing." And yet, painting wasn't something that I excelled in so much as drawing, so it's interesting. I think she meant that it wasn't too geometric and linear and so on. I'm guessing. So that's going on nicely. and the dust there's the dust swiftly goes down because it's heavier. And in the photo, it's just a clear blue sky. I could add some clouds if I wanted, but I'm not going to. There's something to me that's really delightful about just a perfectly clear blue sky. It's like, oh good, sunshine all day, hopefully, or at least for a few hours. No chance of any naughty clouds getting in the way and blocking the sun. And especially if it's in the colder months. A day without clouds sounds like an Enya song, although she had a day without rain or something. A day without clouds sounds delightful. As Mr. Wafflebird sings his very annoying song. I like them to look at, but it's very annoying first thing in the morning. And you suddenly hear that raspy sort of sound. If there's wattlebirds in heaven, I'm sure they'll sing very lovely songs. Maybe they used to make good alarm clocks for people that lived here back before alarm clocks were invented. I don't know. Certainly as annoying as one. And my tea for this morning is licorice and cinnamon. So I've been given permission by my naturopath to reintroduce some spices and things back into my diet and just still avoid the fermented foods that might annoy the sinuses. Which means I can have curry with cinnamon, my favourite spice, apart from ginger. I don't know if ginger's a spice, but she was a spice girl. Alright, so I'm just doing blocking in the main areas. I will bring in more of the blue inside the vegetation areas, where the leaves and things are. But for now I'm just going to do the main bits. The fun part will be doing the river, especially when you get onto the reflections and then it starts to get a bit of depth and just that magical quality of capturing reflected images in water. It's quite something. And with the last one that I did, the big Werribee River one, which I sold recently to a good friend, which is a real blessing to me and to her, I think, and to the people she was giving it to. The last one I did, that was at the same location, slightly different position, like looking at a slightly different part of the river, but it was the same general area. So the river was there and I really enjoyed doing the reflections there. At first they looked a bit rough, like it was choppy seas or something, lots of wind, but then once I smoothed things out and went over it again a bit more, it had that real calm sort of river look. Now I've got the paper. This is a bit I don't particularly like when you've got the paper that's in the way. Take a little bit off. It came off pretty easy, which is good. The nice thing is that didn't all crumble away like some of the other chalk pastels I use. If you pull off a bit of paper, something that's like, oh, a huge chunk fell off. Now I'm hoping that you can see alright. You won't be able to see the whole picture because I'm sure at least half of me will be in the way. But I don't have the privilege of having a massive studio or anything. I'm just in my dining room, which I'm renting. Well, I'm renting the whole house. So anyway, I'm just going to make do with what I've got and be thankful for it. If you haven't used chalk pastels before, I highly recommend them. They are just really delightful to use, and to use these nice smooth ones as well feels nice. But it's nice to do some artwork that's quite tactile on a bigger scale. You can get your fingers stuck in, so if you were deprived of doing finger painting and so on in your younger years, then you might enjoy this. It's not super messy, but just enough to feel like you're getting in there, getting a little bit dirty, and getting involved with the real world, the tactile world, physical. Like, to feel the grittiness, to feel the smoothness, and so on. It's nice. You're not just stuck in front of a screen, hunched over, getting dehydrated or whatever, and getting sucked into a world that, you know, I'm not knocking the whole thing. There's some great things you can do with technology, but it's like you're in a virtual world that it's not blessing parts of your body and soul that the real world can bless and interact with. You're sort of losing the touch side of things, and even the smell. Not that pastels really smell, but it would be nice if they had different fragrances. And you've also got the sound of the pastel against the paper and so on. Alright, now this time I will go right up to the edge, because last time with my Werribee River, I don't know why my mouth doesn't pronounce certain things properly. Anyway, must be all that British breeding, royal blood. Anyway, last time I did the picture of the Werribee River, I didn't quite go to the edges, but then I found, because the edges were a bit rough and all over the place, it was hard when I went to get it framed to know exactly where to bring it to, so I think I'll just go to the edge. But I don't want to cover up the white bits, because we need that for framing. You need to have a bit of clear paper so that the tape that the framers use can stick onto something without a whole lot of dust getting in the way. And with the last one I did, I didn't have these big Rembrandt ones, and I was using the Art Spectrum pastels, and they produced a great effect in the end. But I found that I needed to start with, like, I started with the blue, but it was darker than this, and then I had to put white on top. Whereas with this one, I don't feel like I need to add much more to it, except for a bit of white, maybe lower down, just to add a little bit of variation. So I could add some white. I'll ponder that. But this blue is lighter than the other one I was using, and I quite like it as it is. Alright, so that's that area. Now, you'll probably get annoyed because I'm going to have to move this side, and I might block even more of the view, although hopefully it will allow you, if I stand to one side, to watch out for the fish tank. So if you hear a gurgling noise, it's a fish tank. And if you see a bit of light movement, I was looking through the camera earlier and there's a bit of light movement. There's probably some light bouncing. I've turned off the fish tank light for the moment, but I think there's still a bit of light that's reaching the water in the tank somehow. Anyway, so working over here, adding in some more blue. So this part of it is quite quick. And the pastel drawings that I've done, the large ones in the last year or two, I've been surprised at how quick they have been to finish. I mean, when I've been doing them, I have had more time to work on them than I would in other years when I've been busy with a full load of teaching. But it does seem to be a quicker medium than if I was doing a pen drawing of the same scene. I mean, the smaller you go with the pen work, the quicker it will be, generally. But because of the fine detail, and you've got to be careful about every little stroke of the pen, it does take longer. And sometimes it's nice to actually break away from that and do something big like this. And there are artists that just stick with the same thing all the time, and that's fine. If that's what they love, great. But for me, I kind of think, and I've said this before as well, I'm sounding like I'm getting old now. I've said this before. What was I going to say? It's definitely a sign I'm getting older. I feel like as artists we're explorers, and when you have that creative spirit inside you, I feel like, why sort of put that in a box and limit yourself to one medium or one particular style all the time? I know it's great to refine it, and people buying your art love to see consistency apparently, but for your own pleasure as an artist and fulfillment, I feel like you want to mix things up a bit so that you can stay fresh and not just get stuck in a rut. It doesn't mean that you've got to go and do something excuse me, outlandish and totally different to what you normally do. My style isn't, you're not going to wake up one day, I'm assuming, and find that I'm suddenly doing this abstract work just with squares or something. I'll always be leaning towards that highly representative or representation style, but there's room for movement there, and I like to try new things. And I think creativity is one of those things that it's infinite. There's no end to the possibilities for creativity. If you think of music, there's no end to the amount of tunes that you could create. And with art, there's no end to the amount of things that you can paint or draw, and the ways that you do it, the mediums and all that. Furniture design, architecture, it's endless. And writing and so on as well. I know there's always going to be similarities with things, but the possibilities are endless. And if we're created in God's image, which I believe we are, He is a creative being, and we first come to know Him as Creator, our Creator, in the Bible. And He is an infinite being, and He is creative, and I believe His creation is never ending as well. I believe in heaven we're never going to come to the end of new things, of things that He is creating or will create. And I feel that same spirit within me when I create things. That it's like, oh, what else could I do? Oh, let me try this, and so on. So anyway, some thoughts there. Now I need to bring the blue up the top here. Most of my pastel strokes are going in the one direction. There's that old band again, or young band. I don't know if they're still together, but anyway. I used to get some giggles from the girls at school when I talk about drawing in one direction. Oh, now I know what I've done. It's not something bad, but when I'll just move over here and you can see the photo hopefully on the screen. I've actually added a little bit extra on the top of the picture, like just about maybe that much, from what's on the photo, because of the format of the paper, I just wanted to add a bit more sky and a bit more tree up the top. So that's why in some places I'm thinking, oh hang on, the photo shows the leaves up here at the edge of the paper, but actually that's the edge of the photo there, and I've just added that extra bit there. So I can just figure out roughly what else I need to put up there. And there's a bit of blue in here. If you've got some really solid bits of leaves, it's good to leave a bit of the paper showing through so that you can have that vibrant, intense colour that you want without the blue sort of muddying things too much. Now there's a thin branch there, I'll go nearly to the edge of that line. Leave a little bit of the paper there. Now, like with colour pencils, if you saw the colour pencil apple drawing that I did last time, with that one we were doing layers. So in a similar way, with chalk pastels, we build up layers of colour. I think I can move over this side again now, and I just need to peel off a bit more. I'm glad I decided to get some extra colours, not just go with getting one, especially when you're ordering things. I thought they were actually coming from Australia, but they came from England, so I thought, oh yeah, I'll get them very soon. Although it only took a week actually, so that was good. Yeah, so it's good to make the order worthwhile and stock up on a bit more stuff. There we are. It's a bit like finding that little edge of the sticky tape when you're wrapping presents. Where is it? Where is it? And you get that funny bit that you think's the edge, but it's not really. It's just deceiving you, and then you end up scratching a hole into it in the middle, and it wrecks it. Okay, nearly coffee time. Alright, so let's quickly add some blue in here. And that'll be an interesting question to ask God when we get to heaven. Why did you make the sky blue and the grass green? And I'm not thinking from a scientific point of view, like what makes the sky blue, but why did you? Because if he wanted the sky to be green and the grass to be blue, he could have done that. Yeah, so I wonder why. The blue of a sunny day sky is always somehow very cheerful and relaxing. And green is a very relaxing colour as well. And interestingly, pink, which someone painted the bed or the studio room that I'm using at some point. Pink is meant to be a very calming colour, unless it's like a hot pink, but something like a strawberry pink, strawberry milkshake pink or whatever, something like that is meant to be very calming. And apparently it's a good colour to use on the walls in rooms for ADHD kids. So maybe we need more pink walls in schools. soft pink. And pink apparently was traditionally a more masculine colour because it was reminiscent of the red coats that the soldiers would wear. So I learnt that recently, and blue was more of a feminine colour. Now, I don't know what it was that reversed it. It was like in the early part of the 20th century when that flipped. So anyway, all colours belong to God and can be enjoyed by His people. It's nice when you are adding in bits of sky in the gaps within trees and things. You start to then see the landscape come alive a bit, start to get just a little hint of depth. So just focusing on the main areas first, and it's usually the way that you start off big areas and gradually your focus gets smaller and on the smaller and smaller details. Sounds like a life lesson there. I know people talk about putting the big stuff in the jar first and then letting the smaller stuff go around it. Sometimes you just wish you had a bigger jar to put everything in. Alright, now that is like a bit of another tree or another branch, so I'll leave that. And I don't think I'm going to add any more blue in the sky yet. I think I might save the bits in between the leaves and things for when I'm going to start doing those intricate bits. Now I'm just going to add in some blue down in the river, and then I'm going to stop and have morning tea, or should I say morning coffee? Morning coffee. I wonder how much this landscape has changed since the early explorers went through the area. So I know Geelong was one of the first places to be settled in Victoria, down by the coast. And the explorers did go through the Werribee area. I imagine there wouldn't have been a huge amount of difference, except maybe now there's less trees. And part of the scene that we're looking at, I think now, is a golf course. So they probably weren't playing golf at the time, but you never know. Now I think while I was busy yakking, I've probably, yes, I shaded over the reflection or the line for that tree, but that's okay. I will just have to put that back in later. It's no great drama. That's the trouble when you're teaching. I find that online as well with my online classes. It can take so much attention or focus to think about what you're saying that sometimes you don't get as far along with what you're doing as you want, or you make a few errors that you normally wouldn't do if you could concentrate. But that's the sacrifice we make to help others to learn. But it is a good lesson that if you want to produce really good art, you actually need to be able to concentrate. You know, if you're just standing there having a gossip, not that we want to gossip, you know what I mean? Some people that love to just sit around and chat about almost nothing for the sake of chatting. But, you know, imagine two artists standing side by side doing that all day. They wouldn't make as good an artwork or get through it as quickly as if they just popped on some nice music and focused. Although it is nice sometimes to be in a group setting where you are making art together and can chat about it, but you find you sort of go in waves of conversation. There'll be times when everyone's engrossed, and then times when something happens and it's like, oh, let's talk about that and have a fun time. So I'm not trying to knock the conversational aspect of making art either. Alright, so there's the main bits of blue over here, and now I'm just going to probably get in your way a bit as I add in some blue over here. Sorry if you can hear that annoying dog in the background. It's a constant theme in my videos. The barking dog neighbourhood. They should rename all the streets around here after dogs, perhaps. I'd just like to find a quiet dog breed that my street could be named after. See if that makes a difference. And I'm not an anti-dog person, but I don't like noise. And I also don't like dogs that jump up on me all the time and try to bite or whatever. But I have met some very nice dogs in my life. And the nice thing is I don't have to look after them. Okay. Just looking here. Sometimes you've just got to focus to make sure that you're not putting colour in the wrong spot like I did earlier. So I haven't put lines for every part of the reflection of water. Sometimes you just leave out some of the smaller details when you're drawing up the initial bits. I've probably gone a bit far over that way, but it's alright, it's easily fixed. I have to find the Needable Eraser later so I can rub some bits back. And then, alright, so that's the water down here. Let's see, that's the edge of the grass there, I think. So I think I just need a bit of blue in the middle of that area. Anyway, just enough to help me. Even just laying down your first bit of colour can help you work out where everything else fits. A bit like choosing certain colours in a jigsaw puzzle and putting them down first. And then you go, okay, now I can work around that. At least I think that's how it works. It's been a while since I've done them. But I did design a couple of jigsaw puzzles on my Zazzle store with my paintings, and I think at least one or two of them have been bought. There's one of the Nicholas Gardens artwork with Summer Before Me I Walk On that was put into a jigsaw puzzle. So you can have a look at my Zazzle store if you're interested. And with Christmas coming up soon, now would be a good time to maybe have a look and see if there's anything that you think people you love might enjoy receiving as a gift. And there are also my calendars on the Zazzle store. So getting towards that time when we start to think about the calendar for next year. Alright, so there is blue there, and I've got that little bit there. No, in between the trees, no. Alright, let me stand back and have a look and let you have a proper look without seeing my back. Okay. And I'm just looking up around here. No, I might just leave that area to work on in greater detail a bit later, but I'll just stick a little bit in there. Now you can get devices to help you sharpen pastels. I did order one, and the company mucked up the order and it never came, and I just wasn't in the right headspace at the time to sort it out. But you could even just use a bit of sandpaper if you wanted to get a nice point. Sometimes though, if you're just working on an angle and turning the pastel around, you can get a bit of a point at the end. You can also get pastel pencils. I've got some, they're not my favourites, different brand. I find they're quite hard. You sort of really have to scrape them on the page to get them to work. But you can get chalk pastel pencils to get the finer details in. But in some ways you might just decide, like I do in general with the pastels, to accept the fact that it is going to be more, I guess you could say, painterly. More, your strokes are going to be thicker, broader. And the TV's just turned off. Robert's MacBook Pro. Alright, now you know my name. So anyway, I'll stop there because my computer is telling me it's time for coffee, and I shall pick it up again shortly. Well, coffee break is over, and I've been outside for a little while to try out my new hand mower. And it seems to work well, although I think you need to have the grass reasonably short for it to work really smoothly, but it's doing a good job. And yes, it means I can get some exercise, get some fresh air while I do the lawn, and not have all the noise and not have to pay for petrol, which would be nice. Anyway, back to the artwork. Let me start the water, and I'll just have a look for a base colour. I want to do the brown reflections, and I'll just try this one and see how that looks. Yeah, I'm happy with that one. So put the reflections in. Won't worry about too much of the little details yet. And I'll just lightly put it in here. So I won't press as hard because I want some of the lighter, like the actual paper colour, just showing through, because I'm going to put some lighter pastel on top. And if I go too heavy, then the lighter one might not take quite as well to the paper. Here as well. Now I think what I'm going to do at this point, and obviously I'm not going to finish the artwork today or any time in the next few days, I'm going to just keep working on it for a bit and just go to time lapse, and you can just observe a sped up version of what I'm doing. But I think I've given you the main bits of info that you need first. But I've just remembered I wanted to talk about the Needable Eraser, so I'm just going to pause the camera for a moment, grab a Needable Eraser and show you that to you. Alright, so I found a Needable Eraser. This one hasn't been opened yet, so it just looks like a wad of blue tack. I don't know what you call it in your country, but in Australia, blue tack is the main brand. That's what we know it as. Okay, so take off the wrapping. So this is not blue tack. It's not quite as sticky, but it does feel quite similar. And this one is once again a bit hard to get off. You can see that it's starting to go gooey already. Right, there we go. Thought I might need the scissors, but I think we'll get away without them. Make sure you got all the plastic off. It's a bit shiny, so it's hard to tell. Okay, I think I've got that one off. And bin later. Alright, so there it is, just a wad of sticky stuff, and you need to knead it like you're kneading dough. So it really does look like a wad of blue tack. And the kids at school always loved playing with this and making things with it when they weren't meant to be. So you just want to work it around, squish it. And the good thing is that if you've got just a smaller area to rub out, you can make it into a point. And so if I was wanting to rub out something here, you'll notice it's not going to take me back to the pristine paper colour that was there to start with. You can sort of get close depending on how much you've put in the spot. But it's not quite like an eraser on a bit of cartridge paper with grey lead, where generally you can get it really clean. That's okay, but the more layers you put on, the harder it is to get through those layers and to get it really clean. There's a bit of brown on there, and you just sort of knead it around, and eventually it just gets absorbed in there. There will come a point where it's too grotty and you just need to get a new one, but they're not very expensive. So that's the Needable Eraser. So I think I've given you enough info now so that you can see the basic setup of things. So we start with drawing up your image, choose your paper, something that's rough. I like gritty paper. Start with, once you've got all the main details drawn, and you don't have to go too tiny with the details either, then you're ready to start blocking in some large areas of your lighter colours, and then from there you can start to block in the darker colours, do layers and add in details. And in future videos I'll talk about some of the ways to add the finer detail. Sorry, my brain's starting to go to sleep already. So yeah, I'll touch base with you in future videos, show you some progress and give you some more tips in those. But for now I'm just going to plug away at it for a while, and you can just watch the sped up version to see a little bit of progress. It's nearly lunchtime though, so I won't get too much more done today. But I hope you found that interesting to see how I get started with pastel, and hopefully it's giving you a desire to actually have a go yourself. Oh, and I didn't mention the tape. I've just grabbed some framers tape there. You could use masking tape or whatever, or you could just use the old bulldog clips. But this is just helping to keep the paper nice and straight for me, leaving some gaps as well so that there is some clean paper that the framer can attach tape to as well when they're framing. I don't know if that's the way you meant to do it or anything, but it just works for me. So part of it's just finding your way and having a go and working things out, learning from other people, little bits of information as well. So anyway, hope you've enjoyed what we've done so far, and I'll catch you in future videos when you can see more progress on this. And I'll try to do some other videos where I'm not doing the pastel drawing but just teaching you some other drawing skills or something in between times. So anyway, I shall catch you in the next one.